Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're Masechtas Avodah Zarah daf Chaf Beis. We are going to begin on Chaf Beis Amud Aleph, about 7 lines from the top. Hanhu Marikoi. So we were learning a din when it comes to a kusi versus an akum. What exactly is the din as far as renting out certain things to them? So when it comes to a merchatz, one of the problems is that people may suspect that since it's your bathhouse, they may be taking the water and heating it up on Shabbos, and therefore it ends up becoming more problematic because people will say it's on you. Now, the question is, why would we possibly make a distinction between a kusi and an akum? So he said, when it comes to a kusi, of course, he's mitzvah in all mitzvos, but he's not as medakdek on certain mitzvos, such as working Chol Moed. So you can also have the same problem that he's going to end up working on Chol HaMoed, and you could also end up looking bad. And we also made an interesting distinction that maybe a kusi who will think he knows just as much as you do, he's not going to listen to you. However, when it comes to an akum, if you tell him, please don't do it, maybe he'll be more prone to listen. So on this we have the following story. Hanhu Marikoi Yomi Kachavim. So there was this Marikoi, which is someone who plants in gardens of saffron, and he was an Oiv Kachavim Nak b'Shabbatah Yisrael b'Chad b'Shabbatah. So the Ovid Kachavim basically did the work on Shabbos, and Israel did the work on Sunday. Also made the Rabbi, so this was like a partnership. And the question is this type of arrangement acceptable? So Rabbi, when he was approached, Sharulahu, he permitted this type of partnership. That even though, again, the akum was plowing and planting and harvesting on Shabbos, and the Yid was doing it on Sunday, wasn't an issue. Now, on this, it's a little problematic, because Esvi Ravino Rava. So they asked the kasha on Rava's psak, Yisrael b'Ovid Kachavim shekibu sad b'shutbus, that if you have a Yisrael and an Ovid Kachavim that join in a partnership, lo yomer Yisrael Ovid Kachavim, so giving away part of the answer, they are now partners, and then after they're already partners, the Yid is not to ask the akum, tol chelcha b'Shabbos v'ani chel b'chol, that you basically take the portion for Shabbos, and I'll do the weekday or Sunday. However, if before the partnership began, then it is allowed. V'im bo cheshbin aser. However, if it's a cheshbin that you make a calculation and divide it all up based on this guy who was working on Shabbos, that is not allowed. So we had this kasha. Basically, it sounds like you're not allowed to have this type of an arrangement. So Ichsif, so he was actually a bit embarrassed. However, the case that he said was mutter was in a case where they actually did make this condition before they were partners, and that's what it says. So that actually was the case. So therefore, even though maybe Rabbi may not have known that originally, and if he was embarrassed, it turned out that his psak was correct. So let's understand this a little bit better. So on this, Rashi says that if you have shikibu sadabi risasan mebal bias, okay, let's look at this Rashi. V'im hisnu mitchila kaidim shahuto. Well, before you have this partnership, you make this stipulation, then it's allowed. Why? To hal loy kibul lehi Yisrael avoid b'Shabbos. V'ein ha'ovid kachavim shlucho. Basically, the ovid kachavim is not your agent, because this was an arrangement as part of the whole partnership being chal. You said that this is the arrangement, and therefore it was never yours, like on Shabbos. V'im bo cheshbin lav is hanu mitchila koi. That's not where the condition was made originally. Ela milsabapi nafshehi. When it says this, that it was becheshbin, that it's also, it's a totally separate matter. Koloimer. Im kibu stam, let's say they accepted it, they made no stipulation. V'asu stam, and this is what they end up doing. No one ever said anything, because the Akim worked on Shabbos, the other guy on the Chayil. The Yid didn't say it, but maybe the Akim just self-understood that this Yisrael is not going to work on Shabbos, so I'll do it. And then he started making calculations to divide the profits. How much did you make on Shabbos? Because the fact is, you're taking part of the success and profits of Shabbos. It's clear that he was actually your shliach to do this work, and therefore it's not allowed. Okay, so let's continue. Rab Gavia Mebiksil Omar, he said, Hanhu Shasilid Arla, Havi Ovikachavim, Achel Shnei de Arla, Yisrael Shnei de Hatera. So let's say you had these rows of crop, and there were partners. Now, an Ovikachavim is not Matsuva in the dinim of Arla, that you can't get Hana from a tree the first 3 years. So he ate the Arla, and the Yid waited until the years of Hatera after the 3 years. So also coming to Rabbi Sharlahu, again, Rabbi allowed this. But I thought we had a kasha that we just saw above, that this shouldn't have been accepted, that he shouldn't have been able to have done this. So Rashi says, Gimel Shanim Acheros Keneged V'Achon. So he ate the opposite. Keneged, what the Akum ate in Arla. Sharluhu de Heter Gomer Havi. Why is it Heter Gomer? The Ha'afagav de Kiblua Yachad L'Chatchila, even though they accepted it together L'Chatchila, Yermelo Yisrael, Vayata Oived V'Gimel Shanim Halol, V'Yani Gimel Achreihem. You work for 3 years, I'll work the next 3. Ein kan Isser Shlichus. Da Yisrael Nami Shariul Ubda. He's also allowed to work the land. Shekain hamishpat shanil shezeh oived haya oichel. He'll eat the year that he works. Okay, so again we ask this kasha. So the answer is l'siyui saya meditani hisdol chatchila mutter. As we said, if there was a condition like this originally, it's allowed. Al makileka iser shlichos demolach hashari. So we can deduce from here that if there's no isser of shlichus, of agency, then it's in fact allowed. Okay. So in this, the Gemara says, so he was embarrassed. It sounds like he realized or felt that he was wrong. So, actually it's not true. He was never embarrassed. That's not part of the story. So, now we have a different question. Stama mai, says Rashi. Let's say shekibu stam, that you accepted this partnership stam without any conditions. You also stam of kachavim Shabbos, Yisrael b'chad Shabbos. The Akum did work on Shabbos, and the Yisrael on Sunday. He didn't make any statements that you should take the Shabbos, I'll take the weekday. Mahu, what is the din l'chalik stam b'shavat? Can they split it up? V'loyaz kir Yisrael as the Shabbos. So on this, Tashma im histum etchil mutter says if you made a condition, it's allowed, which is mashma hastam aser. You're not allowed to if it was a stam. I am a seifa. Cheshbon aser. It's only when they split it up is it aser, which is mashma hastam mutter. So when it comes to stam, it's not clear either way. Hanulach lefnei idein. Hanuach lifnei idein, Hanuach lifnei idehen. So now we're about to venture into the second parak. Let's look at question 5 first. Yisrael v'akum shekibu sad b'shutvis, they're partners. Be'ez oifin, in which situation mivur shemutu achaloi ka'oivoided b'shabbos ha'akum u'nechoyol Yisrael. Be'ez oifin iboidel ifshata. So as you said, if you made a condition originally, it's mutter. Stam, that you were mekabel at stam, and you did it stam, you divided it stam, that is an iboyam dol ifshata, that we do not have an answer to that question. Okay, let's continue with the new Mishnah and the new parak. Ein ma'midin behema bepundikois shel avchachavim. You're not allowed to take your animal and to put it in the stables of an akum. And we'll see that we're concerned mipnei shechashudim al haraviyah. We're concerned that the akum who don't have the highest levels of morality are potentially going to engage in bestiality with your animal. And says Rashi, that it's only with a human being you're allowed to mate with another human being, not with an animal. And therefore, by you giving him this animal, in which you know that maybe this is what he's going to do, so therefore you're going to actually be over lifnei iver, because he's mitzuva on this mitzvah. Furthermore, a woman should not be secluded on the akum because they're chashid on a rayas. Also, a man should not be chachamim because there's a concern that if you're alone with them, you may be murdered by them. Okay, let's see the Gemara in Chaf Beis Amid Beis. So we're saying that you can't do all these different things. So for that, the Gemara, you could actually purchase from engage in a business deal from an animal as a carbon. Ve'ein chayshishin, and we're not afraid. Lo mishum roiva, that they cohabited with this animal. Lo mishum nirva, either way, passively or actively. Lo mishum muksa, we're not concerned of muksa, that it was set aside for Avodah Zarah. Lo mishum nevad, or that it was used for Avodah Zarah. Says Rashi, it says a nevad is possible carbon. All these things are possible carbon, as the Gemara in Baba Kama says, min habehema v'lo kol behema. Not every animal is accepted. Lo haitzi es harayva v'nirva. Min habakar, from cattle, lo haitzi es nevad, if it was used for Avodah Zarah. Min atzayin lo haitzi es muksa. So all these different things are not allowed, but it's okay because we're not chayshish them. Now we're not chayshish that they did this. Now bishul muksa v'nevad, I understand that we're not concerned that they used it for idols, because in Isa the Akse, if he in fact did designate it already for an idol, in Isa the Palchia, or if he actually worshipped, lo havi mazvinle, he wouldn't have sold it to a Jew, because he considers this animal to be of great importance. So therefore, if he actually did either designate it for his idol or worshipped with it, and somehow he's not going to sell it to a Yid. You should be chayshish that they were with their animal, or not. So how come our Mishnah says we're concerned? So Rav Tachlipa Marav Shila Baravina Mishmei Rav Oibikachavim Chas Al Behemtai Shol Ta'akir. This we've had previously, that when it comes to his own animal, he is concerned. So when it comes to your animal, he doesn't care and he'll cohabit with it because it's not his animal. However, if it's his own animal, he is not going to do this. Now, why? Because if he cohabits with an animal, it will cause it to become sterile. Says Rashi, Hilkach lo rabalo. He's not going to be with it. Avol adidan. But our animals, lo chayish keshoymenis bepundaki. If, let's say, you put your animal in a stable or an inn, we're concerned of what they will do with it. Now, hatinach nekevis, I understand a female, zachar ma'il kamemar. So Amrav Kahana, hoyil umachishin bebasar. So the problem is that the zachar, if he cohabits with a male animal, it will weaken its meat. We learn that a person is allowed to get an animal from a non-Jewish shepherd. So why don't we say lichush dilma ravala? Maybe raya. Maybe the raya was raya with this animal. Sholahen misyari misham hasid schar. So we're not concerned that this shepherd did anything with this animal because he's concerned of hefsid schar, that maybe he'll lose money. Elohad Sanya in Meisim Behemo Raya Shulhan, you shouldn't give the animal to a shepherd. Lemo Raya Shulhan Mistari Mishum Hefsid Schara. Why don't we say maybe again the owner's going to find out and therefore he's going to lose money? So the reason why maybe he would want to be with this animal, but because he knows that if the owner finds out about it, he can basically lose his job. So he said there's a difference. In Hudiyadi Bahadadi Mirsasi. These guys we will suspect him. Anando Yadinan Bahu, we don't know these unusual, inappropriate practices. Lomer Sasi, he's not afraid. Jews don't know or think about doing this with animals. So shepherds are not afraid as they're not familiar with these practices. And therefore, when it comes to a Jewish, with a Jewish owner animal, so the shepherd may do this with the animal because he's not afraid he's going to get caught. However, if it's someone who's an akum who's also lewd in this manner, there's more in their mind that maybe this is what the shepherd's going to do, so he's more nervous. Okay, let's look at question 6. Mehem Gimel Tirutzim, and here we only have a couple. 3 answers on the stira of the Mishnah and the Brisa. On one hand, the Mishnah says, Ein Behema Nesha Chashudin, and the Brisa says that we're not chosh. So how do we answer that? So we can say one answer is, this is the answer we've done so far, Akum is chasal behemto shel ta'akir. It's the difference between his own animal and someone else's animal. Okay, let's keep going. Omer Rabba, Hainu Nemer Inchi, this is what people say, Mikasba Galola Boza, that from a steel pan you can carve out metal. Ragua b'chavre yada, the slander of your friend you know. So this is an expression, says Rashi Shel Barzel, who kareya v'roishim es haglal shayish. That with the iron you can carve out marble. Kolomer hashayish who kasha, marble which is very hard. Yorimin hamichtav, it's potentially can be cut up. Vishu makir boy, because steel and marble know each other; they're similar in nature. So the idea basically is that you could be afraid of someone who is very similar to you, but someone who is so foreign, they're not going to even think about the things that you potentially do. So therefore, that's the expression. B'chaver yada. So yihachi zachar min nekevis loy nizboin. So why don't we say that you cannot buy from a non-Jewish woman? Dechashin and dilma mirvele iluye, right? So what's the how about you can say the same thing? And Rashi says, Zachar Nekevis Lizbain Lakarbin. We shouldn't do this because maybe we're concerned. So Kivan Demigriba Mirsasa. Since the animal would end up running after her, so therefore she would be afraid. In other words, there's the potential that if she cohabits, that animal is going to somehow have feelings for this woman, and it'll be suspected that she did this. And therefore she's not going to be with this animal. Therefore, that's why you can buy it. Elohad Tani Rav Yosef are Malta Lotarbi Kalba. It says that a widow, says Rashi, should not have a dog. It says Rashi Shematis Ave V'Tirvenu, because maybe she'll end up cohabiting with this animal. Votistri Bar Beirav Bushpiza, and also we should not allow a scholar into an inn, says Rashi. The agav that tznia lumer sasa shiatzi koil im tiboy. That agav, his modesty, she's not going to be afraid that anyone's going to end up saying anything. Basically, there's a chance that if you're with this guy, it's not going to get out because people aren't going to suspect. And also, he's not going to want to spread this rumor. Therefore, we don't want them to get. Now, Bishlam of Barbe Rav, Sanila, he won't say anything. So that's the reason why we don't want him there, because he may actually be with her. El Kalba, when it comes to his dog, Kivan Demigraba Mirsasa. Don't we say that it's going to go after her? It's going to be clear that what she did. Kivan Dachi Shadile Umsa Umasra Chabasra, because the truth is, let's say she fed the animal continuously like good meat. People will say, oh, Hadim Misrach, the reason why this animal is going after a basra is umsta the kamasra. It's just because you feed the animal. So it's not clear that the reason why this animal is going toward her is because the woman was intimate with this animal, but rather it's just potentially because she fed the animal. And therefore she could always use that as an excuse. Nekevas, Eitzel Nekevas, my taimo lo meyachdinon. So, Stam, what's the problem when it comes to a Nekeva animal with a woman? Why can't they be together? Because, what is the biggest issue over here? It's not considered to be an actual act of bia. So, Omer, Mar Ukva Bar Chamim Neisha Ovid Chavim Mitzvah Eitzel Neshei Chavreya. The Ovid Chavim are often found by their friends' wives. Let's say his friend's wife isn't around. He'll end up taking her animal, and he will be with the animal. Alternatively, even if he does find the woman, nami roiva, he'll still prefer the animal over the woman. They desire even the animals of Israel more than their own wives. Yom Rav Yochanan b'shah sheba nachash al chava is an unbelievable thing, which we don't teach kids. But the nachash apparently had bia with Eve. So hitabo zuhuma. So there was filth in the world. So he put into her something which is filth. So because of that, there was this desire of people who are akum to be with animals because of this original sin. So Yahachi Yisrael Nami, why don't Yisrael also have that shot? So Yisrael Shamil Har Sinai Pascha Zuhumasa. Avik Chachamim Shel Yamdu Al Har Sinai Lo Pascha Zuhumasa. So by Har Sinai, that filth was removed out of us, and an element of Kedusha and Tahira were put out. So that's the reason why they preferred an animal which doesn't have the filth, as opposed to a woman that does. Maybe that's how you read it. What's the din with regarding to even birds? Are we chayshish that maybe they'll actually be intimate with a bird? So Tashma, Diyam Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel, Mishim Rabbi Chanina, Nir Isi Avik Chavim. I saw an Avik Chavim. Shalokach Avos, he took a goose, Minashuk, Rava, he cohabited with it, Chanka, he strangled it, Sola roasted it, Achla. Diyam Rabbi Yehuda Divni, Nir Isi Arvi Echad, Shalokach Yerech Minashuk. He took a limb, the Chokak Ba, and he took it, Kedei Rabia, for the purposes of cohabiting with it. Rav Atzal Achla, that's what he did. He was roiva, he roasted it, and he ate it. Now, it's interesting, by Yisrael, Shamdo Har Sinai, Veniskenu Mikol Mum. It says they were fixed from any of these blemishes. Okay, we're going to stop there. So question 6 is all we got, and we didn't give all 3 answers. We'll see some other answers in tomorrow's daf. TA actually there's nothing, and question TB5 we do have. So let's read that. Loichen behema min ha'akum l'carbon. You can buy a carbon from an akum, an animal as to use as a carbon. And we're not chayshish of mukser nevad or nirva. Why? So I wrote like this: an akum lo yiratza nirva habehema shaloi. Your own animal, shu oisa kochosh. It makes it weak, or it makes it not capable of producing. Avulhu chayshid al behema shel acher Israel. Gam mukse v'nevad im osa behema avodah zara v'moichanos Yisrael acher zeh. They wouldn't sell it to a yid afterwards. Adka.